I physically punished my daughter and she died. I beat her up. It wasn't my intention to kill her, but I beat her up too much.
Could you just confirm your name for me, please, sir?
Yeah, Urfan Sharif.
Sharif?
Yeah, Urfan Sharif.
Yes, yeah, that's Urfan, okay. So, the time is 1947 hours. The body of Sara Sharif was discovered on the 10th of August 2023 on 6 Hammond Road in Horsell. On the injuries sustained by her and the investigation conducted, you are suspected of her murder. You are therefore arrested for murder of Sara Sharif.
Teachers at the school of 10-year-old Sara Sharif were on the point of reporting the bruises on the girl's face to the authorities. Sara suddenly started wearing a head covering, a hijab, to school. The girl's biological mother hadn't seen her daughter for years. On the 10th of August 2023, Sara's father called the police from Pakistan to report that he had unalived his daughter. The photo of the girl that the media has been using shows the 10-year-old wearing a full face of makeup. The case of Sara Sharif is as wild as it is both shocking and sad. Do subscribe, give the video a like, drop a comment and donate. Hit the thanks button below, I'll appreciate you. Now, if you don't want your children to be raised as Muslims, why marry a Muslim? Likewise, if you're an alcoholic, what possesses you to think that you should have children in the first place? Sara Sharif was born in Slough, near London, on the 11th of January 2013. The drink problem of Olga Sharif, Sara's mother, was, I believe, one of the reasons why the involvement of social services in Sara's care began even before Sara was born. Olga was most probably the third of the 3 Polish women with whom Urfan Sharif, Sara's father, had a relationship after coming to the UK from Pakistan in 2001 around the age of 19. It's believed that the man's motivation for those relationships was to gain UK citizenship. Marriage with an EU citizen, at a point when Brexit wasn't even in the offing, was meant to facilitate that process. It's also understood that all 3 of these women were vulnerable in some important way when they met Sara's father, and that the man's behaviour towards them each was notably abusive and toxic. The complaints against the man that the 3 women, who didn't know each other, all filed with the police, attest to the coercive control, the false imprisonment, the acts of violence, and the threats to their lives that they had each suffered from the man. There are more details of the man's abuse towards those women coming later. From the day she was born, Sara was switched endlessly between the care of her mother and the care of her father, with spells in foster homes in between. And yet, the marriage of Sara's parents only officially collapsed in 2015, 6 years in. When the parents' divorce was finalised, the mother was granted custody both of Sara and of Sara's brother, who was born in 2010. But from 2019 onwards, the mother had either little or zero involvement in the lives of her children. This was in spite of the fortnightly visitation rights that the court awarded her when it switched custody of the 2 children, as it did at this point, over to their father. Olga didn't want Muslim children, it turns out. But even so, I can't definitively say that this is why she effectively disowned both her son and her daughter. In her new home, Sara had not just her father and her brother, but also a stepmother, an uncle, and, over time, a total of 4 younger siblings. On the 14th of September 2023, the father, the stepmother and the uncle were all charged with A. the M-bleep RDER of Sara Sharif, the girl's death having occurred on the 8th of August 2023, and B. causing or allowing the death of a child. Their respective not guilty pleas is, of course, why a trial had to take place. The trial began on the 15th of October 2024, at which point Beinash Batool, the second wife of Sara's father and the mother to the youngest 4 of his 6 children, was 30 years of age. Faisal Malik, meanwhile, brother of Sara's father, was 29. In May 2021, the stepmother WhatsApped one of her sisters to say that Sara's father was, quote, a psycho, unquote, who, quote, beats the crap out of Sara, unquote. She relayed that morning Sara had fainted in the kitchen, having had no sleep the night before. The father had, the stepmother reported, made his daughter do sit-ups all night long as a punishment for hiding some keys where the cigarettes, whoever smoked them, were kept. The stepmother added that, given how the father treated his daughter, she didn't know why she ever let him into the home. Both this sister and at least one other, though, always responded that Sara's punishments from her father served Sara right. To them, Sara could have avoided her father's abusive actions by simply behaving. Advising the stepmother to read the Quran was another of the responses that they typically made on what have turned out to be, as I believe has already become patently clear, the numerous occasions on which the stepmother complained to them about her husband's abuse of his daughter. The prosecution, however, argued that the stepmother conveniently failed to mention to her sisters her own abuse of her stepdaughter. The day after Sara's body was discovered by the police, the sister that the stepmother messaged about sit-ups night, if you will, blocked the stepmother on her phone. Also, given the date of sit-ups night, where the stepmother, to remind you, notified one of her sisters that her husband regularly battered his daughter, the prosecution's suggestion that the abuse that Sara suffered at home before her death spanned at least 2 years looks like a major underestimate. In fact, there are phone records to show that the abuse dated back all the way to March 2020, if not even earlier. In addition to expressing to his sisters her sorrow for Sara on account of her abuse from her father, the stepmother revealed to them that she was frequently made to hide Sara's bruises with makeup and sunglasses. She didn't say who made her do that, but one can, I believe, make an educated assumption. There was at least one occasion, however, where Sara's facial injuries were just too great for the stepmother to cover up.
A year later, she messaged, "I can't even cover it up. He beat Sara up yesterday, and I can't send her to school on Monday looking like that."
We can assume that at least one of the father's 5 other children was a girl because a former neighbour of the family, who is serving as a witness, commented on how strange it looked to her when, in January 2023, Sara suddenly started wearing a hijab. This change in Sara's mode of dress, in fact, came 7 months after Sara's school noticed a bruise under Sara's left eye. The neighbour reports that at the point when Sara started wearing a hijab, none of the other females in the family wore one, and that included the stepmother herself. The prosecution argues that the father and the stepmother made Sara start wearing a hijab in order to hide her facial injuries. In contrast to the outcome of the father's first threat to his daughter's school that came in June 2022 to withdraw his daughter from the school, in April 2023, the father fulfilled the second of these threats. The father's first threat was his response to the school's notice to him that they had seen the aforementioned bruise under Sara's left eye and that they were very concerned about it. The father pulled Sara out of the school the following April after getting notice from the school the month before that they would be reporting to social services the new bruising on Sara's chin and on her right eye. A hijab, as you may already know, covers the head and the cheeks while the rest of the face remains fully visible. As such, Sara's chin and eyes weren't hidden by her hijab. I'm under the impression that when the school probed Sara about the bruising to her face in June 2022, her explanation was that it came from a fall while skating. How much further she was probed on the matter, for instance, being asked to show the school nurse her knees, her hands and any other parts of her body that are likely to also have been injured in one such accident, I can't say. I also can't say why the school didn't report Sara's bruising to social services at that point. I don't know what further injuries, if any, the school noticed on Sara between June 2022 and January 2023. Likewise, keeping in mind that the father's violence towards his daughter began long before May 2021 by all accounts, I don't know if the school had noticed any injuries anywhere on Sara's face or body before June 2022. Sara's having been yanked out of the school by her father in April 2023 was the school's reason for not following up with social services on their referral to them of Sara's case. Unlike in June 2022, you see, following their recording of Sara's facial injuries from March 2023, the school actually did report the matter to social services. The stepmother then felt sorry for Sara and, it would seem, only ever masked the facial injuries that the father inflicted on his daughter with extreme reluctance. In speculation, this may indicate that she would have preferred Sara's injuries to be seen, since that would possibly have triggered Sara's rescue from her father. This attitude of the stepmother is attested, as stated, in the many WhatsApp messages that she sent to her sisters over a number of years. But yet, neighbours report that they only ever heard the children being beaten or abused or sworn at when the stepmother was at home alone with them. At such times, the father was out at work, taxi driving being his job. The stepmother was also the one who, over a 9-day period at some point, bought as many as 19 rolls of duct tape, which she, the father and the uncle, well, any one or more of those parties, used to cover Sara's head and face while torturing her. To be exact, the duct tape held in place the bag that they put over Sara's head to stop the blood from the injuries that they were inflicting to her head and face escaping. I can't say if this was the one and only occasion when the three parties named tortured Sara in this particular way, or if there were further occasions of this. In any event, as regards the stepmother's conduct towards her stepdaughter, the prosecution argued that the stepmother's messages of concern to her sisters regarding Sara were simply staging. Having anticipated that both she and her husband could ultimately end up in court over Sara's abuse, the stepmother sought to set herself up not only as innocent, but also as someone who was deeply disturbed by Sara's abuse from her father. The father of Sara Sharif locked his 3 former Polish girlfriends in their rooms, smashed up their phones, took their passports away from them, threatened to kill them, tried to strangle them with a belt and punched them. As regards the matter of strangulation by belt, I believe that this left at least one of them with buckle marks on her neck. The one consequence to have come from the 3 arrests that the father was subject to as a result of his abusive behaviour towards the 3 women is, as far as I'm aware, the domestic violence rehabilitation programme that he attended for a total of 16 weeks. The man was never actually charged as a result of his arrests. One of the children that one of the women had was barely a month old when the man bit him or her. The all-over bruising that another child that one of these women had came, again, from the punches that the man inflicted on him or her. I don't know how many children in total from those 3 women the man burned, or how many others he bit, or how many others he punched, or how old the children were, apart from the case of the 1-month-old. I can again confirm, however, that the man faced no criminal charges for his acts of violence against those children. The man was both a drinker and a gambler. In court, the jury was shown a video recorded by the father of Sara Sharif himself, in which the father slaps his daughter round the face 3 times in a row. On the first slap, Sara actually smiles, bizarrely enough. On the second slap, she makes no reaction at all. But when, on the third slap, she protests by saying, "Hey," the video ends. The father's explanation for inflicting those 3 slaps on his daughter was that it was just a bit of play and that the 3 slaps were in no way harmful or abusive. He elaborated that the fact that Sara didn't cry after the first slap was proof that that slap wasn't that harsh. The father affirmed additionally that Sara was used to being slapped around the face by him. In Sara's home, which was in Woking in Surrey, police found a cricket bat carrying Sara's blood, a hoover carrying Sara's blood, a rolling pin carrying Sara's DNA, and some black rope holding some of Sara's hair. The father's answer to the question from the prosecution as to whether he could imagine the pain that Sara felt when he whacked her on the neck with the cricket bat was no, he couldn't. There was at least one other fracture to Sara's neck, coming not from the whack to her neck with a cricket bat from her father, but rather from compression of her neck. The examination of Sara's neck, in fact, showed evidence of her having been subject to prolonged manual strangulation on numerous occasions at points that fell 6 to 12 months before her death. I'll quickly insert at this point that the fractures found in the fingers of Sara's left hand were substantially more recent than those found in her neck. The father admitted to committing those acts of manual strangulation against his daughter. He also admitted to having repeatedly hit his daughter on the head with a phone on at least one occasion. What he denied, however, was belting, burning and biting his daughter. Where the biting is concerned, both the father and the uncle were actually cleared of those acts, since their dental impressions didn't match either the 5 human teeth marks that were found on Sara's left arm or the one that was found on the inner thigh of Sara's left leg. The stepmother, meanwhile, refused to allow her own dental impressions to even be taken. On the matter of the burns that were found on Sara's body, it's known that those that the girl sustained to her ankles came from her having been tied by the ankles to heating pipes in the home. It's also known that those that were found on the girl's bottom came from an iron. It isn't known, however, who of the father, the stepmother and the uncle inflicted those injuries on the girl. The same goes for the injuries, burns again I believe, caused to Sara by her having been scalded with boiling hot water. And the same goes for the injuries caused to Sara by the buckle of a belt. Any one or more of the three adults in the home also ripped Sara's hair out of her scalp. There was, again, evidence on Sara's body attesting to that. There's an obvious explanation for Sara's having been so vastly underweight at the time of her death. She'd been starved. This fact was reinforced by the examination of her bones. At the time of her death, 10-year-old Sara was 4 stone 3. The soiled nappy that the police found out in the garden when they raided Sara's home belonged to Sara. I can't say at what point Sara had, in the lead up to her death, become incontinent, but making her wear nappies was how the father and the stepmother dealt with it. In Sara's notebook, which was found by the police, there were statements from Sara telling the father and the stepmother how sorry she was for being rude to them and for answering them back and imploring them to forgive her. There was a message specifically for the father on the occasion of his birthday, thanking him for looking after both her and her siblings on the weekend and for making them food then as well. Sara wrote that her family was the best in town and that they spread love all around the world. She described the stepmother as beautiful and young, while praising her father for earning money so that the family could eat, sleep and have shelter. In Sara's autopsy, a total of 71 injuries were detected in her body, her death being the culmination of these many injuries. It's believed that 2 particular episodes of violence, separate to the final act of violence that the girl suffered, contributed to Sara's demise, one coming 10 days before her unaliving and the other coming 2 days before. On both occasions, Sara sustained, amongst other injuries, significant trauma to her brain. The brain trauma caused to her 2 days before her unaliving, meaning the 6th of August 2023, would, the prosecutor claimed, have left the girl in severe, ongoing pain. A neighbour reports having heard, on this same date, a gut-wrenching scream coming from Sara's home.
Now, the court was told that one woman heard what she described as a high-pitched scream 2 days before Sara was killed.
On this point, Rebecca Spencer, another neighbour, says that, dating from before March 2020, she frequently heard screams coming from Sara's home, as well as sounds of clanging, smacking, rattling and banging.
Another neighbour at their previous address called Rebecca Spencer had her recollection read out by the prosecution today. Now, she had said the following: on the occasions that I would hear these banging and rattling sounds, they would often be accompanied by the sounds of a child crying or a screaming, followed by complete silence. She went on those occasions, I can only describe the silence as deathly quiet, and I cannot even imagine what had happened to make the crying or screaming child become immediately so silent.
On raiding the family home on the 10th of August 2023, police found, out in the garden, a hosepipe, some rope, a bat, some dirty leggings belonging to a child, and the said dirty nappy belonging to Sara. The nappy was wrapped up in a towel. The police also noted that the home was spick and span. The explanation for the hosepipe, the leggings and the nappy, and for the notably clean and tidy state of the home, is that on the 8th of August 2023, straight after unaliving his daughter, the father carried Sara's body into the garden, stripped it, jet washed it with the garden hose, and then changed it into clean clothes. He then brought it back inside and laid it on a bunk bed, after which he scrubbed the house from top to bottom. Sara, you see, had been unable to defend herself when, just before giving his daughter's corpse a spray clean out in the garden, the father relentlessly battered her with a metal pole, stopping only once she was dead, because he tied her hands together with tape before he got started on the beating. The text message that one of the father's other children sent to a friend of his or hers straight after Sara died, which told that Sara had just died, is how police know when Sara's unaliving occurred. The stepmother sounded perfectly calm and composed when she subsequently phoned a travel agency to book flights to Pakistan for the family, a trip that they made the day after Sara's unaliving, the 9th of August 2023.
Hi there, I'd like to know about commit my trip to Pakistan.
All right, let's go to where in Pakistan you want to go, ma'am?
Islamabad.
Yeah. And from which airport?
And whichever one it is.
Okay. Your travel dates, please.
Early as possible tomorrow.
Hotel 6. And return?
Single.
Okay. And how many passengers will be traveling?
So, 4 adults and 4 kids.
Yeah, so here, ma'am, you have an option with Oman Air tomorrow night from Heathrow via Muscat to Islamabad.
What time?
8:50 at night, tomorrow night.
Any kid available in the morning? Is there anything in the morning?
Just a minute. There's a Gulf Airline flight tomorrow morning, ma'am, at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock in the morning, landing at 6:15 in the evening. There's a 5 hours and 50 minutes waiting there, and then you reach the next day morning at 5:35.
Oh, wait. How long does it say?
5 hours and 50 minutes.
Yeah. Is there anything shorter?
It was in fact the father who, later that day, ended up booking flights for the family to Pakistan, the stepmother's own call to a travel agency, for all the stepmother's calmness having led to nothing. The phone call made to the police by the father from Pakistan lasted approximately 8.5 minutes.
Take a deep breath and tell me what's happened.
I cannot. I physically punished my daughter and she died.
Your daughter has died?
I killed my daughter.
How have you killed your daughter?
I beat her up. It wasn't my intention to kill her, but I beat her up too much.
The note from the father relating to Sara's unaliving, which police found when they raided Sara's home, which they did mere minutes after the father's phone call, had a cover message that said, quote, "I love you, Sara," unquote. The remaining content said, quote, "Whoever sees this, it's me, Faisal Sharif, who killed my daughter by beating. I'm running away because I'm scared, but I promise that I will hand over myself and take punishment. I swear to God that my intention was not to kill her, but I lost it. My daughter is Muslim. Can you bury her in a Muslim way? I will be back before you finish the post-mortem," unquote. The stepmother is the one who addressed the media to publicise their reasons for fleeing from the UK and deny one particular story about how Sara had died.
Firstly, I would like to talk about Sara. Sara's death was an incident. Our family in Pakistan are severely affected by all that is going on. All the media have been giving wrong statements and making up lies. Imran did not give a statement that Sara fell down the stairs and broke her neck. This was spread through a Pakistani media outlet. I am very worried about Imran's safety. All of our family members have gone into hiding as everyone is scared for their safety. The kids are unable to attend school as they are afraid to leave the house. No one is leaving the house. The groceries have run out and there is no food for the kids as the adults are unable to leave their homes out of fear of safety. That is why we have gone into hiding. Lastly, we are willing to cooperate with the UK authorities and fight our case in court.
Police apprehended the father, the stepmother and the uncle even before they got off the plane at Gatwick Airport on their return to the UK on the 13th of September 2023.
Yes, we are, yes. Are you okay just to swap over? Just yourself come with me, and if you go with my colleague over there, is that alright?
Nice, where's your bag? Have you got like a cabin bag?
He does. He does? Yeah. So which one is your bag?
I don't have any bag.
You have no bag?
No.
Okay. We'll look overhead. Right, can you put your hands together like that, please? Yeah, I'll explain more outside, okay?
Sorry?
I'll explain more things outside, okay? Right, hold on to him, Yeah, could you just confirm your name for me, please, sir?
Yeah, Urfan Sharif?
Sharif?
Yeah, Urfan Sharif.
Yes, yeah, Urfan, okay. So, the time is 1947 hours. The body of Sara Sharif was discovered on the 10th of August 2023 on 6 Hammond Road in Horsell. On the injuries sustained by her and the investigation conducted, you are suspected of her murder. You are therefore arrested for murder of Sara Sharif. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned, something which you later rely on in court, and anything you do say may be given in evidence.
You are therefore arrested for the murder of Sara Sharif. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you don't mention one question, something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand what that means? Okay.
From the injuries sustained by her and the investigation conducted, you are suspected of her murder. You are therefore arrested for the murder of Sara Sharif.
The day before this, police over in Pakistan had, on raiding the home of the father's father, found the father's 5 remaining children safe and well. The children were subsequently returned to their grandfather's care after spending a few hours with the authorities. This is what happened to them as soon as they were found. In court, the father initially claimed that his phone call confession to the police was, in fact, an attempt of his to cover up for the true unaliver in his family. On the 5th of November 2024, his answer to the question of whether he had unalived Sara was that he had in fact tried to revive her on coming home from work and finding her unresponsive upstairs with her stepmother. He testified that when he attempted to give his daughter CPR, the stepmother told him to, quote, leave it, unquote, since Sara was already dead. She responded in the same way when the father implored her to allow him to call an ambulance, so no ambulance was called. On subsequently learning from the stepmother that another of his children, no less, had taken Sara's life, the father announced that he would take the blame. The father testified that slapping his daughter was the only act of violence that he ever inflicted on her. In contrast, the stepmother, who he called, quote, a psycho, unquote, was forever whacking his daughter and was the one who committed all the horrendous acts of abuse and torture against Sara that the court was hearing. This is what the father testified to. He also asserted, contradictorily enough, that he hardly saw any of the stepmother's violence against his daughter due to being at work most of the time. He claimed, additionally, that having the stepmother hit him on the head with a lemon squeezer was the consequence of his announcing to her, as he said he did at one point, that he wanted to leave her. Attacking him with a broom on another occasion is another thing that the father alleged that the stepmother did to him. On the 13th of November 2024, however, the father returned to his original position regarding who unalived his daughter. He stated that, in his previous testimony, he'd been acting selfishly, blaming others for Sara's unaliving. He tearfully admitted to having been, quote, a very bad dad, unquote. This was in reference to his numerous acts of violence against his daughter, the father having admitted at this point to having done a lot more to Sara than just slapping her. And he wasn't just referring to his act of unaliving his daughter, an act which, as I say, he reconfessed at this point either. He stated that the stepmother, who he now said never actually harmed Sara, had tried to stop him beating his daughter, and that it was in fact him who stopped her calling an ambulance after he unalived Sara. Likewise, he refuted the prosecution's suggestion that the uncle helped him perform the spray cleaning of Sara's body after her unaliving, and insisted that, having never been there when he, the father that is, was battering or torturing his daughter, and having never committed any such acts himself, the uncle, like the stepmother, was wholly innocent. The prosecution, however, suggested that the father was simply trying to play the court. The police, you see, had built a substantial case against the father in relation to both charges against him, unaliving his daughter and causing or allowing the death of a child, and the many details incriminating the father had since been revealed to the court by the prosecution. The father's fingerprints, for a start, were found on the bag that the 3 defendants had used to hood his daughter and on the parcel tape that they used to keep the hood on. Having realised then that he couldn't beat the evidence against him relating to the 2 charges against him, the father was, in protesting at this point the innocence of both the stepmother and the uncle, simply trying to minimise the outcomes of the trial. Better only one of the 3 defendants going down for the unaliving of his daughter and for causing or allowing her death than all 3. The father, the stepmother and the uncle all had separate counsel and separate defences. The stepmother and the uncle never took the stand. They let their counsel do all the talking. Some of the father's testimony from the 13th of November 2024 was notably contradictory. The father admitted on the said date to unaliving Sara, accepting, quote, full responsibility, unquote, for her death, and accepting, quote, every single thing, unquote. In keeping with those statements, on being asked whether he had intended to unalive his daughter, he answered, quote, yes, she died because of me, unquote.
Giving evidence at the Old Bailey today, Sharif told jurors, "I accept every single thing." His wife Batool, who the dad had previously sought to blame for killing his daughter, wept during the dramatic admission. Her lawyer, Caroline Carberry KC, asked Sharif if he intended to kill Sara, to which he replied, "Yes, she died because of me." The dad added, "I take responsibility. I take full responsibility." Miss Carberry continued, "Do you accept that you killed her by beating her? Do you accept you had been beating Sara severely over a number of weeks? Do you accept using the cricket bat to beat her? Do you accept using the cricket bat as a weapon on her on a number of occasions? Do you accept that you used the cricket bat on her with force?" Sharif replied, "Yes, ma'am."
At another point, however, he contradicted himself, insisting that he didn't mean to unalive his daughter. Given the way in which he took his daughter's life, however, I personally speculate that his contradictory statement may well not even matter at the point when the jury deliberates on his guilt. To convict a person of MBLEEPRDER, you understand, a jury has to be convinced that the person acted with the intention to either unalive their victim or cause them serious harm. At the time of this recording, the verdicts of the trial hadn't yet been reached. Personally though, I think the verdicts are a foregone conclusion, and while I hope that the father, the stepmother and the uncle just get locked up forever, no sentence, as far as I'm concerned, will be long enough for them. If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.